One day, Jesus and his disciples gathered by the Sea of Galilee. Jesus said to them, "Let's go over to the other side of the lake." Together, they got into a boat and set out across the calm water. The disciples noticed that Jesus had fallen asleep in the corner of the boat, and they continued rowing quietly, not wanting to disturb him. After a while, a fierce storm suddenly swept over the lake. Waves crashed into the boat, and water began to pour in from all sides. The wind grew stronger, and the boat rocked violently as if it might capsize at any moment. The disciples were terrified and felt helpless, yet Jesus continued to sleep peacefully through the storm. Finally, one of the disciples approached him and cried out, "Master, save us. We are about to perish." Jesus woke up, looked around, and saw the chaos surrounding them. He stood up calmly and raised his hand toward the raging storm. With a powerful yet gentle voice, he commanded, "Peace, be still." Instantly, the wind stopped howling, the waves subsided, and the water became calm once more. The storm had vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The disciples were astonished, their fear replaced by awe. They turned to each other, whispering, "Who is this man? Even the winds and the sea obey him." Through this miracle, Jesus showed his disciples the power of faith and his divine connection to all of creation. The disciples understood that as long as they stayed close to him, they had nothing to fear. Even in most intense storms, they continued on their journey across the now calm lake. The disciples couldn't stop thinking about what they had just witnessed. The fear they had felt moments earlier began to give way to a deep sense of reverence and gratitude. This experience reminded them that, with Jesus by their side, they were safe no matter how turbulent things became. When they reached the other side of the lake, a crowd had already gathered, eagerly waiting for Jesus. Word of his teachings and miracles had spread far and wide, and people came from neighboring villages to hear him speak and seek his help. Among them were the sick, the weary, and those carrying heavy burdens, all looking for hope. Jesus spent the day healing the sick, comforting the sorrowful, and sharing words of wisdom. He spoke to them about love, forgiveness, and faith, teaching that God's love was like a light that could never be extinguished. Those who listened felt peace wash over them, as if they, too, had been calmed like the stormy sea. That evening, as the crowd began to disperse, the disciples gathered around Jesus, still in awe of what had happened on the lake. One of them, Peter, finally asked what had been on all their minds, "Master, how is it that even the forces of nature obey you?" Jesus looked at them with a gentle smile and said, "If you have faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Do not doubt, but trust in the power of God within you." He reminded them that, just as he had calmed the storm, they too could find peace in their hearts no matter what storms life brought their way. From that day forward, the disciples felt their faith grow stronger. They learned to trust not only in Jesus, but also in the divine presence within themselves. This journey across the lake became a symbol for them, a reminder that true peace came not from a life without storms, but from a heart anchored in faith. And whenever they faced challenges, they would remember Jesus' words, "Peace, be still, and find calm within." No matter how strong the winds blew around them, the disciples continued their time with Jesus. They witnessed more miracles and heard teachings that would shape the rest of their lives. Every experience with Jesus was filled with lessons about faith, love, and trust in God. One day, Jesus decided to take his disciples up a mountainside to pray. As they climbed, he spoke to them about humility, reminding them that greatness in God's eyes was different from the greatness sought by the world. "Those who serve others," he said, "are truly the greatest among you." His words struck deep in their hearts, encouraging them to put aside pride and embrace humility in all they did. When they reached the top, the disciples were exhausted, but Jesus began to pray with a strength that seemed beyond ordinary. The disciples watched in awe as his face began to shine like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly, two other figures appeared beside him, and the disciples somehow knew that these were Moses and Elijah, prophets from ancient times. Peter, overwhelmed by the vision, whispered to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will set up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Before Peter could say another word, a bright cloud covered them, and from within the cloud came a voice, saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." The disciples fell to the ground in fear, covering their faces. But Jesus approached them, touched their shoulders, and said, "Rise, and do not be afraid." When they looked up, the vision had faded, and only Jesus was with them. They were left speechless, struggling to understand what they had just experienced. As they descended the mountain, Jesus instructed them not to tell anyone about the vision until the time was right. It was a moment that would stay with them forever, strengthening their faith and preparing them for the challenges that lay ahead. In the days that followed, they encountered many more people who sought Jesus' guidance and healing. Jesus continued to teach them about forgiveness and compassion, urging them to love even their enemies and pray for those who persecuted them. His teachings often challenged their beliefs, pushing them to see the world through eyes of mercy and love. As they journeyed together, the disciples gradually transformed. They became less concerned with their own desires and more dedicated to helping others. They understood that Jesus' mission was not just to perform miracles, but to show them a new way of living, one rooted in kindness, humility, and unwavering faith. And so they walked with Jesus, each step drawing them closer to understanding his message. They knew that their journey was only beginning and that they were called to spread his message of love and peace to the world. As the disciples continued following Jesus, they began to notice that his teachings were becoming more profound, even hinting at his coming sacrifice. Jesus spoke often about a kingdom not of this world and how love could overcome even the darkest of circumstances. But despite his growing influence, Jesus faced increasing opposition from religious leaders who felt threatened by his message and popularity. One day, Jesus and his disciples entered Jerusalem amidst cheering crowds, who laid down palm branches before him, calling out, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." The disciples were amazed at the outpouring of love from the people, but they also sensed an undercurrent of tension in the city. Jesus knew that his time was drawing near and that a great test awaited both him and his followers. During the Passover, Jesus gathered his disciples for a final meal, known as the Last Supper. As they shared bread and wine, he spoke words they didn't fully understand at the time. He broke the bread, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." Then he took the cup of wine, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." The disciples listened, filled with a mixture of confusion and sorrow, sensing that something profound was unfolding. After the meal, Jesus led them to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he went to pray. Overwhelmed with sorrow, he knelt and prayed deeply, asking for strength to face what was to come. "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." His disciples, though tired, watched from a distance, trying to understand the depth of his anguish. Suddenly, soldiers arrived, led by one of their own, Judas, who had agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. In the confusion, the disciples felt a rush of fear and despair. Jesus, however, remained calm, surrendering himself without resistance. As the soldiers took him away, the disciples scattered, their faith shaken and their hearts filled with dread. Jesus was brought before the religious authorities, falsely accused, and ultimately handed over to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. Although Pilate could find no fault in him, the crowd demanded his crucifixion. In a tragic turn, the same city that had once welcomed him now called for his death. Jesus was sentenced to die on the cross, a punishment reserved for the lowest criminals. He was mocked, beaten, and forced to carry his cross to Golgotha, the place of his execution. As he hung on the cross, he spoke words of forgiveness, even for those who crucified him, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." In his final moments, he cried out, "It is finished," and surrendered his spirit. The disciples, heartbroken and fearful, went into hiding, struggling to comprehend what had happened. They mourned the loss of their teacher, feeling as if all hope had been lost. But 3 days later, an incredible event changed everything. Mary Magdalene, one of Jesus' followers, went to his tomb and found it empty. She ran to tell the disciples, who could hardly believe her words. Then, Jesus appeared before them, alive, speaking words of peace and comfort. The disciples were overjoyed and overwhelmed. Jesus had risen from the dead. This miraculous event transformed the disciples. The fear and doubt they once felt were replaced by an unshakable faith and courage. Jesus spent the next 40 days with them, teaching them about the kingdom of God and preparing them for their mission. Before ascending to heaven, he gave them a final command: "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." Empowered by Jesus' resurrection and his promise to be with them always, the disciples set out to share his message of love, forgiveness, and salvation. They traveled to distant lands, facing persecution and hardships, yet their faith never wavered. Through their efforts, the message of Jesus spread throughout the world, bringing hope and healing to countless people. And so, the life and teachings of Jesus, once shared with a small group of followers, became the foundation of a movement that would change the course of history. His legacy of love, compassion, and selfless sacrifice lives on, inspiring millions to walk in faith, pursue peace, and carry hope to every corner of the earth. After Jesus' ascension, the disciples gathered together, as he had instructed them, waiting for guidance and strength to continue his mission. They prayed earnestly, remembering his promise that he would send a helper to empower them. On the day of Pentecost, as they were gathered in an upper room in Jerusalem, a powerful event occurred. Suddenly, a sound like a rushing wind filled the room, and what appeared to be flames of fire settled above each of them. The disciples were filled with the Holy Spirit, and they began to speak in different languages. Filled with boldness, they left the room and went out to speak to the crowds gathered from all over the world for the festival. Miraculously, each person heard the disciples speaking in their own language, proclaiming the teachings and resurrection of Jesus. Many were amazed, and thousands were moved to believe in Jesus that day, marking the birth of the early Christian church. From that moment, the disciples became known as the apostles, those sent with a mission. No longer fearful, they traveled to distant lands, each facing tremendous challenges. They healed the sick, performed miracles, and preached the message of salvation, just as Jesus had taught them. They dedicated their lives to sharing the story of Jesus' love, forgiveness, and the new life he promised to all who believed. Peter, once hesitant and quick to doubt, emerged as a leader among the apostles. He boldly preached in Jerusalem and beyond, drawing countless followers. John, known as the disciple whom Jesus loved, became a profound voice of love and faith. Others like James, Andrew, and Philip ventured to new lands, spreading Jesus' teachings even further. One of the most surprising figures was Saul, a man who had once persecuted Christians fiercely. Saul had a life-changing encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, where a bright light blinded him, and he heard Jesus' voice asking, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" This encounter transformed Saul, who became Paul, one of the most dedicated apostles. He traveled extensively, writing letters that would later become part of the New Testament, guiding and encouraging early Christian communities. As they shared Jesus' teachings, the apostles faced persecution, imprisonment, and even death. Yet their faith remained unshaken. They believed in the promise Jesus had given them, that he was with them even in their trials. Through their steadfast commitment, the message of Jesus spread to every corner of the Roman Empire and beyond. Over generations, countless followers continued this mission, carrying the message of hope, forgiveness, and eternal life. Churches were built, communities formed, and the teachings of Jesus became a source of comfort, inspiration, and purpose for millions. This movement became known as Christianity, a faith that would shape cultures, influence laws, and inspire great works of art, music, and literature. Today, Jesus' teachings remain at the heart of Christianity. His messages of compassion, humility, and love have transcended time and culture, reminding people to seek peace and live with purpose. For those who follow him, Jesus is more than a figure from history. He is a living presence, a guide, and a source of strength. His life and sacrifice continue to inspire people to serve others selflessly, to forgive, and to walk in love. And so, the story of Jesus, the humble teacher, the healer, and the Savior, continues. His impact is felt in the hearts of millions, proving that love, even in the face of darkness, can indeed transform the world. Through the lives of his followers, the message of Jesus endures, bringing light, hope, and peace to each new generation over the centuries. The story of Jesus has inspired countless generations, each carrying forward his teachings and building upon the foundations of faith laid by his early followers. As Christianity spread, it encountered challenges, triumphs, and periods of transformation. Churches were established across continents, and believers of diverse backgrounds came together, united by their shared devotion to Jesus and his message of love. In the centuries following the apostles, early Christians faced waves of persecution from the Roman Empire. Many were martyred for their faith, choosing to stand firm rather than renounce their beliefs. Despite the hardships, their courage and steadfastness drew even more people to the faith. Eventually, in the 4th century, Christianity gained official acceptance in the Roman Empire when Emperor Constantine converted and issued the Edict of Milan, granting religious tolerance. This marked a turning point, allowing Christianity to flourish openly and spread even further. As Christianity grew, it adapted and took root in various cultures, each adding unique expressions of faith. Monasteries arose, preserving ancient texts and providing places for prayer, study, and service. Monks and nuns dedicated their lives to following Jesus' teachings, creating communities of learning, hospitality, and healing. Missionaries journeyed far from their homelands, sharing the gospel and establishing churches in remote regions of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. During the Middle Ages, Christianity played a central role in shaping European society. Great cathedrals were built, symbolizing the devotion of the faithful and reflecting humanity's desire to honor God through art and architecture. Universities were founded, and scholars, inspired by their faith, began to explore philosophy, science, and theology. Thinkers like Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, and Teresa of Avila delved deeply into the mysteries of faith, leaving behind works that continue to inspire spiritual and intellectual growth. Yet, the journey of the Church was not without its struggles. Divisions arose over theological differences, leading to periods of reform and renewal. The Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, led by figures like Martin Luther, John Calvin, and others, sought to address issues within the Church and return to the teachings of the early Christian scriptures. This movement led to the creation of new Christian denominations, each emphasizing different aspects of faith and worship, yet all rooted in the message of Jesus. In more recent history, Christianity has continued to evolve and spread across the globe, embracing new cultures and adapting to modern times. Movements for social justice, human rights, and charitable work have often been inspired by Jesus' teachings on compassion and service. Christian leaders like William Wilberforce, who fought against slavery, Mother Teresa, who cared for the poor and sick, and Martin Luther King Jr., who championed civil rights, drew from their faith to bring about positive change in the world. Today, Christianity remains one of the largest and most diverse religions, with believers from every corner of the globe. Churches vary in worship style, language, and tradition, yet they all share a common bond in Jesus' teachings. His message of love, forgiveness, and redemption continues to resonate, guiding people toward lives of purpose and compassion. In an ever-changing world, the story of Jesus offers a timeless reminder of hope, faith, and the transformative power of love. As each generation encounters new challenges, they find comfort and strength in his words, "I am with you always, to the very end of the age." The legacy of Jesus lives on through his followers as they work to be light and love in the world, carrying forward the message that began on the shores of Galilee 2,000 years ago. And so, the journey continues, with countless lives inspired by Jesus' example, each one a new chapter in a story that will never truly end. In our current era, Jesus' message of love, compassion, and forgiveness continues to inspire people of all backgrounds and faiths. Many find strength in his teachings, using them as a foundation to face life's struggles and uncertainties. Across the world, followers of Jesus gather in various ways, from grand cathedrals to humble homes, from bustling cities to remote villages, united in their pursuit of a faith that transcends borders and speaks to the deepest needs of the human heart. In this modern age, Christians face unique challenges. The rapid pace of technological advancements, shifts in cultural values, and the spread of global communication have transformed how people live, connect, and perceive spirituality. Yet, amid these changes, the core teachings of Jesus remain a steady guide, urging his followers to love one another, seek justice, and extend kindness to those in need. The call to service has led many Christians to dedicate their lives to acts of compassion and justice. In hospitals, shelters, schools, and relief organizations, people inspired by Jesus work tirelessly to bring healing and hope to the marginalized. Missionaries still travel to distant lands, not only sharing the gospel, but also providing education, healthcare, and humanitarian aid. In regions affected by poverty, conflict, or natural disasters, Christians often partner with others of different faiths or beliefs to help rebuild communities, exemplifying Jesus' call to serve the least of these. The digital age has also opened new opportunities for sharing Jesus' message. Through social media, blogs, podcasts, and virtual communities, people can now connect globally, creating an environment where spiritual growth and support are accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Online ministries reach individuals who may never set foot in a traditional church, providing encouragement, resources, and a sense of community. The message of Jesus has even inspired movements for environmental stewardship. Recognizing the beauty of creation as a gift from God, many Christians have embraced a commitment to protecting the environment. This creation care movement seeks to address climate change, pollution, and deforestation, emphasizing that humanity has a responsibility to steward the earth lovingly and sustainably. In this way, Jesus' teachings on humility and respect for life continue to influence attitudes toward the planet. As Christians navigate modern challenges, such as divisions within society, economic inequalities, and struggles for justice, they often return to Jesus' teachings as a source of guidance. Many recall his words from the Sermon on the Mount. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." This simple yet profound reminder continues to motivate people to work for peace, harmony, and understanding, even in times of conflict. In times of personal hardship, people around the world find comfort in Jesus' promise that he would always be with them. His message of hope remains especially powerful for those experiencing grief, loss, or loneliness, reminding them that they are loved and valued. Across cultures, Christians have found solace in prayer, meditation, and reading the scriptures, drawing strength from their faith to overcome adversity. Through every generation, the story of Jesus has inspired acts of kindness, forgiveness, and courage, reminding humanity of the boundless potential for love and compassion. His life, sacrifice, and resurrection are seen as the ultimate testament to the power of faith and the enduring promise of hope. The journey of Jesus' followers is far from over. Each new era brings fresh challenges, and yet the legacy of his teachings continues to adapt and thrive. As his followers seek to embody his love in all they do, they become part of a story that reaches back 2,000 years and stretches far into the future. A story rooted in the belief that, through faith, Light can overcome darkness, love can conquer fear, and peace can transform even the most troubled hearts. And so, the legacy of Jesus endures, inspiring people to live with compassion, work for justice, and carry hope into the world. His story is a reminder that, in each act of kindness and in every choice to love selflessly, His Spirit lives on, offering the world a glimpse of a better, more loving future. The journey of faith continues, one step at a time, as His followers strive to bring His light into every corner of the world. As time moves forward, Jesus' message continues to resonate, guiding millions to live with purpose, integrity, and compassion. Each generation of followers seeks to apply His teachings in a world that is constantly changing, finding ways to embody His love and mercy in both small and monumental ways. Today, in communities large and small, people are finding creative ways to live out the values Jesus taught. In local neighborhoods, churches and faith groups organize outreach programs, feeding the hungry, supporting the homeless, and offering companionship to the lonely. Programs to mentor young people, counsel those in crisis, and empower communities in need serve as tangible expressions of Jesus' call to love your neighbor as yourself. For many, these acts of kindness are not just service, but a powerful form of worship, lived out in everyday life. In addition, interfaith dialogue has become an important part of modern Christianity. Followers of Jesus engage with people of other faiths and beliefs, finding common ground on issues such as human rights, environmental protection, and global peace. Inspired by Jesus' love and inclusivity, many Christians work hand in hand with others, building bridges across cultures and promoting understanding. These collaborations echo Jesus' example of welcoming people from all walks of life and serve as a reminder that love and respect can transcend religious and cultural differences. Christian artists, musicians, and writers also bring Jesus' message into the modern world through creative expression. From traditional hymns to contemporary worship music, from Renaissance paintings to digital art, artists continue to share His story in ways that connect deeply with people's emotions and experiences. Writers explore faith themes in novels, films, and poetry, weaving Jesus' teachings into stories that inspire hope and resilience. Through these creative expressions, Jesus' life and message continue to reach people in fresh, relatable ways. Furthermore, as the world becomes more interconnected, Christians are increasingly aware of global injustices. Human trafficking, poverty, and lack of access to clean water and education are issues that people of faith seek to address. Following Jesus' teachings about justice and compassion, Christian organizations and individuals advocate for change, working to protect human dignity and to create a world where all people are treated with respect and fairness. In personal lives, people continue to draw deeply from Jesus' words and example. They find strength in His teachings about forgiveness, choosing to release resentment and seek reconciliation in relationships. They find courage in His example of self-sacrifice, striving to act with integrity even when it's difficult. They find hope in His promises, trusting that love, even when it faces challenges, can overcome pain and division. For those who seek meaning and direction, Jesus' invitation, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," remains a profound comfort. His words remind them that they are not alone, that there is a purpose greater than their immediate struggles, and that love, ultimately, is at the center of existence. In modern times, movements for mental health awareness have been embraced by many Christians who recognize the importance of supporting one another through emotional and psychological challenges. Churches offer counseling and support groups, providing safe spaces where people can share their struggles and find community. Inspired by Jesus' compassion for the hurting, these efforts bring healing to those in need and embody the spirit of His mission to bind up the brokenhearted. Looking to the future, the message of Jesus remains timeless, a beacon of hope and peace. His life and teachings offer a vision for humanity, one where justice, love, and mercy are the guiding principles. In this vision, people are called to live not just for themselves but for others, to treat each person as precious, and to build a world where kindness prevails over cruelty and hope over despair. And so the story of Jesus lives on, not only in history books and churches, but in the lives of those who choose to live by his teachings. His legacy is found in the countless small acts of goodness done in his name, in the quiet moments of prayer, in the work for justice and mercy, and in the continual effort to live with compassion and humility. Each act of love becomes part of his story, a testament to the enduring power of a message that has shaped lives and transformed the world. As his followers continue to walk this path, they become part of a larger story, a story of redemption, of light shining in darkness, and of love that knows no bounds. And through their lives, the legacy of Jesus continues, bringing hope to a world that still yearns for the peace he promised. Today, as we look ahead, the teachings of Jesus will continue to influence future generations, inspiring lives of purpose and devotion. The challenges of the modern world, environmental issues, inequality, and the search for true peace remain complex, but his message offers timeless solutions that resonate with people from every corner of the globe. In the face of global uncertainty, many look to the hope Jesus provided through his words and actions. The idea that love is a force more powerful than hate, that forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds, and that God's kingdom is one where all are equal, continues to challenge the status quo. As societies become more divided in some respects, there is also a growing movement of individuals and groups who embody Jesus' radical message of love, reaching across political, cultural, and religious divides to bring unity and understanding. Many are also embracing the call to care for the planet as a sacred responsibility, inspired by Jesus' own appreciation for creation. The environmental crisis has prompted Christians, alongside people of other faiths, to take a stand in advocating for sustainable practices, conservation efforts, and responsible stewardship of Earth's resources. Christian environmental groups, reflecting on the belief that God created the earth and declared it good, are working to ensure that future generations inherit a world that can thrive. Moreover, the global rise of social justice movements, focused on racial equality, gender justice, and the rights of marginalized groups, has deeply connected to Jesus' teachings about lifting the oppressed. His interactions with the outcasts of society, whether they were lepers, women, or tax collectors, demonstrate his commitment to breaking down societal barriers. His words, "The last will be first, and the first will be last," continue to inspire those working for justice and equality, challenging power structures that seek to marginalize people based on race, class, or background. The spread of technology and the digital age presents a new challenge and opportunity for spreading the message of Jesus. Online communities, podcasts, and social media platforms enable Christians to share his teachings with greater ease and reach. Through these platforms, people can share stories of faith, hope, and transformation, spreading Jesus' message of unconditional love to those who may never have heard it before. Virtual communities provide space for people to connect, pray, and support one another, creating a global network of believers united by faith. In the realms of education, Jesus' message continues to shape the values of compassion and empathy that are taught to the younger generations. Schools and institutions, whether secular or religious, often promote the teachings of kindness, humility, and respect for others, values that echo the essence of his ministry. Jesus' teachings remind educators and students alike that true wisdom is not just knowledge, but the application of love in every action and decision. In families, his words continue to guide relationships, emphasizing the importance of unconditional love, forgiveness, and patience. As families strive to build healthy, supportive homes, the example of Jesus as the ultimate source of love and patience is often at the core of these efforts. His example teaches parents to nurture their children with care, offering forgiveness when mistakes are made, and fostering a sense of belonging and security. Looking to the future, it's clear that Jesus' life and teachings will continue to shape not only individuals, but entire communities, cultures, and societies. His message of hope and transformation holds the power to inspire change on a global scale, as it has for centuries. Whether it's through acts of charity, social movements, or a simple act of kindness, Jesus' influence is deeply woven into the fabric of human history and progress. As his followers move into the future, they will undoubtedly face new challenges, whether related to technology, ethical dilemmas, or geopolitical tensions. Yet, his teachings offer a timeless foundation for navigating these complexities. The challenge remains not only to proclaim his message, but to live it out fully, modeling the kind of love that Jesus demonstrated. In the end, the story of Jesus is not a static account of events that happened long ago. It is a living, breathing narrative that continues through his followers. Each act of kindness, each step toward justice, each expression of love becomes part of the ongoing story. And so, the legacy of Jesus endures, growing ever more vibrant as his followers continue to spread his message to the ends of the earth, shaping the world into a reflection of the kingdom of God that he came to proclaim. The journey of faith, one rooted in love, humility, and service, will always be relevant no matter what the future holds. And in the hearts of those who choose to follow Jesus, his teachings will remain the light that guides them through every challenge and triumph, illuminating the path of hope, peace, and eternal love. The story continues, and the world still waits to see the transformative power of his message unfold in new and remarkable ways.